Chapter 13, Julie's Story. I don't really have a story, Julie answered in a panic. Why are they asking me? I'm not one of their crew. I never agreed to be part of this charade. They invited me, but they didn't tell me I'd have to participate in this ritual cleansing. I wouldn't know what to say. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Here you've been hanging out with us and playing tour guide for a day and a half, and we know little about you. We've just poured out our guts, and we're not expecting you to do the same. Rachel licked the last bit of whipped cream off her finger. Just a little bit, please. Well, as you know, I live down here, have all my life. I met my husband in college and worked as a journalist for the Fort Lauderdale paper to put him through medical school. He's a surgeon. I have two daughters, both married, and that's really it. Oh, come on. You can do better than that. Linda coaxed her to continue. No cute story, no conflict. Julie felt her neck going stiff. The next would be her chest pounding, and then the tightness in her chest. Her right leg started bouncing under the table. There really isn't any conflict other than maybe feeling a little lonesome since the kids left. You know, empty nest stuff. I get that. Rachel and Linda chimed in together and then broke out laughing. My girls were, well, my closest friends. Now they're so busy with their own families, they barely have time for me. We get that too. They were so cute growing up. She stopped talking and glanced around the table. It seemed to her that the alcohol had begun to take its toll on all of them. Maybe I can bullshit my way through this. There were a lot of little stories, but right now I can't remember my own name, much less something that happened 20 years ago. Well, when my girls were growing up, they were two totally different girls, my two. Sophie was always confident and outgoing, and we always had smooth sailing. She was so easy. She was the younger of my two. But Allie, a different animal altogether. Julie started to snicker, reflecting on raising Alexandra. It had been such a challenge trying to guess which side of Allie was going to show up on any given day. I had to scream into my pillow on a regular basis just to let out my frustrations in dealing with her. One day I sat down and wrote a poem about it. I may be a little too drenched in Canadian club to remember it all. You guys want to hear it? Absolutely. Definitely. Okay, I'll try. Julie paused. She couldn't even remember the name she had given this effort at creativity. Wait, it's called, That's My Girl. Oh, and Sophie had her nose all out of joint because I didn't write a poem for her, I remember. Julie took a sip of her drink. Okay, here goes. Just when I think my patience is spent and I have no more strength to abide, her demands and her mood swings never relent, then she shows me her softer side. Not a lot different from other teens. Her room is a mess, her music loud. She'll speak in a language, don't know what she means, then she'll do something to make me proud. She talks about music, running, and boys, waffling from elation to despair. Makeup and warm ups have replaced other toys, but her life she's still willing to share. She's so busy, she's always gone in a flash. Seems our relationship's always on the mend. We misunderstand, we bicker, we clash. Then she tells me I'm her best friend. Julie stopped for a second, her eyes welled up with tears. A little choked up and pensive, she attempted to gather herself. She took one more sip of her drink, which was now near empty. The ice slid against her lips, heralding a wave to the server from Rachel to bring yet another round for the table. Julie took a deep breath and then dabbed her mouth with her napkin. She continued. My fondest hope is to keep it that way. She is truly the light of my life. I'll hold on to her as long as I may, until she becomes some lucky man's wife. Her father will tell her to be who you are, and everything will work out in the end. Just be Allie, he says, and you'll go far. Allie, my daughter, my friend. Julie closed her eyes, picturing her daughter as a young teen, with hands on hips, an angry look on her face, replete with rolling eyes. She grinned, still with her eyes closed, followed by a contented sigh. When she slowly opened them, her eyes darted around the table to find her new friends, all of them, silently weeping to themselves. That was just beautiful, Julie. Debbie volunteered. You're quite a talented poet.
Yeah, those were lovely sentiments. Do you get along well with Allie now?
Beth was curious, having had ups and downs with her own daughter. I guess so. Not really. She never calls. She's so self absorbed. Maybe we spoiled her. She moved a little further north, so I don't see her as much, and she's pretty busy with working and two small kids, so Julie didn't feel like going into detail and certainly didn't want to let on how devastatingly hurt she is about Allie's lack of attentiveness to her. What about the other girl? What did you say her name was? Sophia? Asked Rachel. It's Sophie. We actually named her after Meryl Streep's character in Sophie's Choice. That movie was out like forever ago, Linda said.
1982, to be precise.
Beth corrected her. You would know. Rachel sounded only slightly snarky, but still received everyone's condescending stares. What? Julie carried on with her story. My husband and I went to see the movie for our first date. We were so moved by the film. We talked about it until 3 in the morning. We've watched the movie many times since. Not lately, but it used to be a thing with us.
So then why didn't you name your firstborn Sophie?
Beth fiddled with the straw in her drink. Her interest in baby naming was limited. She thought that Julie's interest in the movie was related to the Holocaust. By the time we got married and I got pregnant, we had lost my dad to a massive heart attack. You know, the kind they call the widowmaker? He had one of those. He was only 62. His name was Alexander, hence the Alexandra. Ah, I get it. Sorry you lost your dad so young. Me too. Debbie commiserated. Do you have any poems for Sophie? No poems, but I could probably dredge up a story or two. She was a character. The server placed a tray down on the table. This time there were only 4 glasses. Julie tried to figure out who was quitting. It must be Linda. There's no beer there. Figures. Wasn't she the one that was watching sugar? Oh, yeah, for the cancer. I don't know how I would ever be able to go through that. If I down this one of 2 things will happen. 1, I'll get very uninhibited and therefore very funny and or vulgar. 2, I'll get a little mush-mouthed and you may not understand me. And 3, I'll forget what I'm saying and tell you the same story over and over again, Julie announced. You're too funny, Rachel exclaimed. What was so funny about that? Debbie wanted to know. You didn't notice what she said? You've probably reached your limit, too. Rachel, too, was slurring her words. She said one of 2 things would happen, and she said 3 things. All 5 of the women laughed boisterously as if they had taken the lead from Rachel. They had been sitting in the corner of the hotel's restaurant for several hours, and the place had emptied out except for a smattering of late-night drinkers by the bar, so they weren't disturbing anyone at that point. Oh, I have a cute one, Julie proclaimed. This is a cute little vignette about Sophie that will give you a good idea of the kind of person she was and still is as an adult.
Vignette. Don't use such big words. I'm too baked to understand those big words.
Beth plunked her elbows on the table and planted her chin on top of her fists. Baked? You're not baked. You're frickin' drunk. You only get baked when you smoke dope. Quit trying to act hip. As soon as she said it, Rachel knew she had gone too far, and before anyone had a chance to react, she rectified the situation. Sorry, Beth. I'm a little soused. May I? Julie was learning the friendly sarcasm. Okay. So when the girls were really little, we took them to a Marlins baseball game. It was when they played their home games at the north end of the county in the same stadium as the Miami Dolphins. Allie was, I think, 5 and Sophie was 3. We always bought the really cheap tickets, so we were seated up high in the nosebleed section. We got there early and were already settled into our seats when a rather large black man and his little boy were making their way up the steps.
It's African American,
Beth corrected her. Oh, shut up, you and your political correctness. Rachel had her head resting on her crossed arms on the table. Anyway, Julie went on, Sophie noticed them as they approached. She stood up and pointed to the man and pronounced, He's black. Everyone who was resting heads was now sitting upright. Remember now, this was over 20 years ago. We were stunned. He stopped at the row behind us, guided the little boy from the aisle, and promptly took the seats directly behind us. We weren't sure if he heard her, but it was confirmed that he had when Sophie turned around and said it directly to him. You're black. My husband slid down in his seat and looked straight forward, assuming, as always, that I would deal with Sophie and her antics. I turned around and apologized to the man. He wasn't the least bit bothered. In fact, he told us that all she had done was tell the truth. He said, I am black. I love the purity and honesty of children.
So, what happened?
Well, we never figured out how to teach tact to our daughter. We tried that day. We tried to tell her that it's not polite to point out people's differences. She didn't understand. By the end of the game, she was sitting on his lap, sharing his peanuts, and having a wonderful time. After a trivial silence, all the women tittered and then broke out into full laughter. That's adorable, said Debbie. My kids, neither of them ever would have done that. To this day, they wouldn't talk to strange people, nor would they break bread with someone they just met. Mine either, affirmed Rachel. In fact, mine are a little bit racist. They would have reacted more like your husband. Is he prejudiced? No, I don't think so, answered Julie. Sometimes I wonder, though. How so? Asked Linda and Beth in unison. I don't think I want to go into it, but let's just say we're on opposite sides of the aisle, okay? Gotcha, said Rachel. Discretion is the better part of valor, to put it nicely, especially with this crew. Rachel had already had her head bitten off from going down that road in conversation too many times with her friends. So, is Sophie still outgoing and outspoken? Debbie wanted to know more. Most definitely, Julie said confidently. This is a kid who has always been outgoing and outspoken. She has always taken up for those less fortunate and has always been able to look past people's differences and make a beeline to their hearts. She stopped for a second and then qualified her statement. That has been both a blessing and a challenge for her.
What does that mean exactly?
Asked Beth. I guess I mean that she has always been a very thoughtful and introspective person. Even as a child, she lived on a higher emotional and spiritual plane, making it difficult for her socially. Her focus when she was 8 or 9 was on mitzvot or doing good deeds when the rest of her classmates were into Barbies and Furbies. Remember them? Oh my God, yes, said Linda.
Oh, geez, Eddie was all over the city looking for them that one year, moaned Beth. Every kid had to have one.
Not Sophie. I mean, she asked for one, but when we told her we couldn't find one, she said it didn't matter. She actually said she had more important things to worry about. Oh my God, what could have ever been more important than having a Furby? Asked Linda sarcastically. Julie was extremely proud of her daughters, she was realizing. Why is it I never think about this stuff? Both of my girls are good kids. Allie did all this stuff right along with Sophie, even if these projects were all Sophie's ideas. Why is it always in my head that they're so difficult? Sophie had put together a school supply drive the year that Furbies came out. She had been on a visit to a homeless shelter with her father and had noticed a bunch of kids getting on a county school bus with no backpacks, notebooks, or even textbooks. She sat forward in her seat and picked up her drink again, noticing that it was almost empty again. She waved to the server and lifted her glass. She had gone, or I should say, had me take her to all of the elementary schools in the area. She dropped off a letter to the principal asking that a flyer be sent home requesting that when students come back to school in the fall, that they each bring one extra school supply for homeless children.
Wow, she thought of this herself? How old was she?
She was 9, and yes, she thought of it herself. She told her dad that she didn't understand how the kids going to school from that homeless center could learn much if they didn't have the right tools. So, in the fall, Morty and I went around to all the schools and picked up all the donated supplies. She was invited to present what she collected at a board of directors meeting. It took 2 of those great big laundry carts, you know the ones I mean, like the ones hotels use. Everyone revealed a knowing nod as they continued to listen. She made a full presentation to all these movers and shakers without batting an eye. There was even a television news crew there that interviewed her afterwards. I took video of the whole thing, but my hands were shaking so because I was crying. Wow, just wow, said Debbie. You must really be proud of her. And Allie, I'm sure. We are. I mean, I am. I really am. The server put the 7th round on the table in front of Julie. Again, there was no beer for Linda. This time, there were only 3 drinks. Julie tried to figure out who else quit. She didn't really care. What she did notice, however, was that her bladder was busting. She pushed away from the table to excuse herself. I'll be right back.
Hurry, we want to hear more.
Julie stumbled away from the table and called back over her shoulder.
Not much more to tell.
What the hell else do they want to know from me? I better think of something to tell them about me. I don't have any tragic, terrible story to tell them. I don't, do I? I guess that's good. She pushed open the door to the familiar ladies' room, hoping against hope that she would be alone. She wasn't. Once again, there were several young girls in the corner of the vanity area, this time smoking something. Must be some crack or something. I shall not engage with them. Hey, lady, what are you looking at? Want to score a rock? A well-dressed, tall, blonde, 20-something woman picked her head up above the group and directed her question to Julie. No thanks. Julie kept walking toward the toilet stalls and sinks area. A sinking feeling hung in her chest, and she knew the encounter wasn't over. I'm not looking for a shakedown here. Glad I left my bag at the table, or did I? I did. Shit, I'm drunk. She didn't intend to, but she slammed the stall door shut, alarming the women. Lady, keep it down. Sorry. Julie finished her business as quietly as she could, flushed, and then washed her hands. She breezed by the conclave in the lounge area and tried to hurry back to the table, with every intention of telling the girls what was going on in there. Oh, shit, I can't do that. Debbie, shit. What was I supposed to be thinking about while I was in there? Oh, yeah, me. Fuck, what am I going to tell them? What am I doing here? What did I already tell who? Or is it whom? I always get those mixed up. Nobody cares about grammar anymore anyway. I can't get over some of the garbage these new cutesy little reporters get away with now. And that fucking happy talk between all the hard news. Do they even listen to what they're reading? I think not. Wait, what was I supposed to be thinking? Shit. Fuck my life. Oh, yeah, that's right. My life. Fuck my life. Julie slowly ambled up to the table and found her new friends arguing once again. She didn't even bother to ask what it was about this time. She tuned it out, slumped down into her chair, and calmly picked up her drink and nursed the ice cubes. There was very little liquor left, but since everyone else seemed to be slowing down, she thought she would be better off saving what was left.
Okay, now we know all about your kids. What about the elusive and mysterious Julie? Linda was sincere. We hardly know anything about you. So far, we only know you live here in Florida. Your husband's name is Morty. He's a doctor and is away at a medical convention. You have 2 grown daughters who sound delightful, and you work as a writer. Linda sat back. How close am I? That's pretty much it in a nutshell. My main career was as a stringer for magazines in the local newspaper. I'm semi-retired, so I do contract work now. Julie thought she was off the hook. Only one part was a lie. She wrote, but for television, and it used to be for herself. And? Inquired Rachel. And what? What else is there? Come on. There has to be some sort of interesting thing or conflict or adventure. You have to have some kind of challenge, excitement, or problem? Debbie was trying to be tactful. Why, there are some people who live normal lives, you know, snipped Rachel. No crazy lawsuit, illness, or accident? No nasty neighbor? Catty fight with a girlfriend or anything?
Beth asked. What is wrong with you people? Julie was almost indignant. Why does there have to be something awful going on in someone's life? My marriage is monogamous, unlike Rachel. There's no cancer, like Linda. There are no addiction issues, like Debbie has. And nobody has inflicted hate crimes or murders in our lives, like Beth has faced.
Nothing really. We just are surprised how someone can live over 50 years without facing any really critical challenges.
Linda, again, was quite sincere in her explanation. You have a charmed life, honey. Neither your own actions nor things out of your control have gotten in your way. You're a lucky girl, Rachel added. Julie paused for a second. At first, she was angry at these women. She had never really stopped to think about her blessings. You know what? I never even thought about it, but then all of you have faced so much and have survived so much and more, seem to be so much stronger for it. Yeah, well, sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to be true to yourself. Like William Shakespeare wrote, to thine own self be true. Rachel allowed the words to slide out slowly, but she looked away. Julie assumed it was because Rachel had made her own bed and still felt some guilt.
You do. You always just have to keep going, said Linda. You have to embrace every second you have. My motto is that God only gives us what we can bear. And when things are good, you have to make the best of them. Yep, added Debbie. And you should never do anything to sacrifice the integrity of your own potential. I mean, you never know what God has planned for you. I've seen what addiction can do to you. When you poison your mind and your body, you make bad decisions. Never mind, I drank like I did tonight. I think the most important thing is that we pass on our knowledge and intellectual lore to our children, our life experiences, our family traditions, our heritage, our silly little idiosyncrasies. You know, like I said before, l'adore vador, concluded Beth. Half of the history we know is from storytelling. You all seem to have an awful lot of advice to give someone who isn't saddled with any issues that need addressing. Boy, I'm sounding pretty snarky, almost as bad as Rachel. Why am I being so defensive? You know what? I think maybe I'm a little tired, and I know I've had more than enough to drink. What time is it anyway? Almost 12:30, Beth offered, glancing at her Swarovski watch. When Julie first noticed it, she thought Beth was one of those jappy, label-conscious women. It turned out it had been a gift from her daughter, who had purchased it in Israel. After finding that out, Julie stopped trying to judge and compare herself to these women. We've been sitting here for 4 hours, for God's sake. I need to go to bed. Rachel abruptly stood up and brushed a plateful of crumbs off her skirt. Oy, I'm such a slob. She wobbled a bit and then grabbed the back of her chair. And a drunken one at that. I'm going up to bed. Rachel turned around to leave, but was yanked back, not by anyone in particular, but by the fact that her purse strap was still wrapped around the back post of her chair. Well, now, shit a brick. Graceful as always, Miss Rachel. Linda spoke gently as she carefully slid her chair out. She seemed to Julie to be very cautious in her actions and her statements. Always. Her feelings had been hurt before, probably by Rachel, and she's probably had things she said or done explode in her face. Julie was a little jealous at how measured Linda was. Her life had taught her the one thing Julie has always wanted to learn, and that was how to be responsive rather than reactive. The other two girls and Julie all stood up together as if on cue. Hey, how do we deal with the bill? Julie didn't want it to go on her room. She was prepared to pay cash for her share. The server will split it 5 ways and charge equally to our 5 rooms, if that's okay, Beth explained. Can I just give you guys like $50 each and then have you split it 4 ways? Will that cover me? Whoa, that's way too much. You didn't go through that much liquor, did you? Asked Rachel. Let's wait and look at the bill. Linda again was the organizer. Here she comes. Let me take a look. She thanked the server for the bill and her attentiveness and then sat back down at the table. After a minute of reviewing and staring at the ceiling, doing some calculating, she came up with a figure for Julie. How about 160 each? That gives the server around a 19% tip. Each of us will have $200 charged to our rooms and then get $40 cash from Jules. Geez, how do you do that? Rachel always marveled at Linda's math ability. You don't win the blue ribbon for the math contest here, honey. Somebody sign my check. I gotta put my head down. And she was gone. Julie fumbled around in her purse and pulled out her wad of cash wrapped in a rubber band. She slipped it halfway out and rifled through the bills to get to the 20s. I only need 8. Please let me have 8 $20 bills. The fucking ATM only ever gives you 20s, and I don't have enough, damn it. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got it. Here we go. Can one of you give this to Rachel in case I don't see you tomorrow? I'm not sure what my schedule is going to be. Julie was trying to stuff everything back into her purse without calling any attention to the amount of money she was carrying. I got it. Linda snatched it from Julie. Her room is on my floor. I'll drop it off right now. With the high finance taken care of, the 3 women started out of the lounge while Julie remained. She had taken a seat at the table again, on the premise that she was looking for her key. Debbie turned back and blew her a kiss. Night-night to my new friend. Sweet dreams. Good night, everyone. Thank you for including me tonight.